everyone. It is the first day of fall. And if you've been following my social media at all, you know I am really excited about this. I am wearing tweed right now. It is cool and lovely. We also have some fun friends with us tonight here. We have Karen Pynchon. This is her first event. She's very excited. And most people are saying hello from Halifax, from London, from Virginia. Kristen Meston says, Karen, you're going to have a great time, which is totally true. Many welcomes to all. Mary Maybun all says, Susan Ballinger, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it is the first day of fall. And frankly, I love it. I love it. I love the cool weather. I basically hope that summer kindly and delicately doesn't let the door hit its bum on the way out as it retreats. And this is our season, right? Spooky season. We're headed into the Halloween days, which for me is Peculiar Book Club all over. And tonight we have a special treat. And I know, Davey, you are just as excited as I am.
Wait, this fall weather, what are we talking about? I was just in Dallas, Texas in 100-degree heat, and I come home to this? What happened?
It's lovely. You got to wear a coat today. Isn't that lovely? I love wearing coats.
I did wear a coat walking the dog today.
Did you? I wore my little moleskin jacket. So it's enough to get your heart pumping. And so, I think it's time for us to introduce our esteemed guest tonight, Bill Schutt.
Hi, I thought that was a picture of me when I was younger.
We normally do an explosion, but that's Martha, and Martha was helping me ring in the autumn today. I have 7 chickens, and I thought since you were a zoologist, it might be fun to introduce you via one of my feathered friends here. So welcome aboard, Bill. We are so excited to have you. I have many questions, and I know that the Peculiars do too. Yes, Kristen says, haha, chicken intro. And of course, it is still in the 90s in Dallas. We have some people from Dallas who are there and complaining about the heat. Susan, for instance, is also in the South. So not everybody has the fall weather, but I feel like we can bring them along on this journey, on this autumn journey today, as we start talking about hearts. And frankly, I'm excited. I don't know that I've ever lied on the floor and pretended to be an earthworm before reading your book. So that's a new experience for me. It was very exciting. And we're just really pleased to have you here. But I want to start off by saying we did actually create a beverage in honor of your book. And we always do. Normally, it's a cocktail with alcohol. Today, it is not. Today, it is cocoa. And we're going to be doing that with the introductions here. We're going to do some announcements in just a few minutes. But I just wanted to say we think deeply about your books, and we're always really, really excited. Anthro Girl just wanted to point out that she loves your shirt and wondered if you could say a few things about your bat shirt.
I've been studying bats for like 35 years now, so I think I've got got an array of bat shirts, and I like this one a lot. It's a skeleton, of course. And,
yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's long sleeve because it's fall here too. It rained all day on Long Island, and so,
yeah,
which we needed because we've had a drought.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I think I've got a pretty big collection of bat shirts, and just decided to wear one of those tonight.
I love it. I love it. I actually have a toy bat, a stuffed toy bat that hangs in my office called Archimedes, which is quite large, actually. It's almost fruit bat size. And I've done some fruit bat paintings myself. I love bats. I recently saw that one had been trapped in a stalactite. Had you seen this in the news?
What a beautiful, it's just
amazing. Cool. Utterly amazing. Susan Ballinger also is just waving from Long Island. She's there as well, from Long Island anyway, to begin with. So there's a lot that we have to ask. One of the things Leanne said is, before we start talking about nonfiction, can you tell us about why Captain McReady would not want to encounter a parasitic catfish? And I feel like that's in keeping with the way we normally start our shows.
Yeah, I just turned in a book about teeth, and I had to talk about kangaroo, which are a South American catfish, and there are probably about 30 species of them, and the myth is that they will swim, that they will follow a urine trail to the source. I'll leave it at that. But so when I was writing Hell's Gate, which was my first novel, I had to have a kangaroo scene in it, and I had a kangaroo swim up an unfortunate Nazi soldier, and it's a pretty interesting scene.
Shucks,
But, yeah, I just find that they're really interesting, and that there's really there's no proof, there's no evidence that they indeed do what they are rumored to do. As I was writing this, I spoke to Stephen Spotty, who's the world's leading expert on Candy Roo, and I said, so if I were bathing in a Candy Roo infested tributary of the Amazon, and there were Candy Roo all around me, what would the odds be that one of them would swim up my urethra? And without blinking, he said, about the same chance of being eaten by a great white shark while you were being struck by lightning. So I said, okay. Yeah, the one in the middle, that pink one, was reputedly right there. That was reportedly removed from a very unfortunate guy in South America, in Brazil, in the 1990s. Really, there's been some doubt cast on whether it's true or not, but that's about the only evidence that's out there.
Right. Enough to keep you sanitized bathing conditions, though. It does encourage a certain amount of,
I love looking back at my Google search history after we do these Peculiar Book Club events.
Zombie ants, that had to have been coming up quite a bit. Mike Breen also adds, he says, hearts and bats are interesting and all, but I'm a little terrified about mad cow stuff after reading your book on cannibalism. Yeah. And Anthro Girl also said she never thought bats were cute until reading Dark Banquet and then fell in love. The little noses on vampire bats are so adorable, and it is totally true. Leanne talking about the colony she has that comes out from Austin as well, which all of this is wonderful. I love bats. I was a bat saver. That was my unofficial job growing up, because I lived I went to college in a town where there was quite a lot of bats, and they get caught in people's houses, and people freak out and they want to kill the bats. And so I was bat rescuer. And so I would get strange phone calls at like 2:00 in the morning from partially drunken frat boys being like, oh God. So then I would have to go and collect the bat. And the most amazing thing I ever did is I caught one in the air, which this is not appropriate bat catching technique, but there was a not entirely sober frat boy trying to kill it with a tennis racket, and I just grabbed it out of the air and ran outside with it. So yeah, I love bats. I think that is not appropriate, by the way. Don't do that. But
yeah, tennis racket stories, I've heard so many of them. One is more awful than the next. But we do use, we use swoop nets, like a modified butterfly net.
Yeah. Catching it by hand was not something. I think both of us were quite surprised. The bat was sort of like, for real? And I was like, I know. I just ran outside and it was fine. But they are amazing, and I do love them. So I want to, usually I wait till the very end to do announcements and then don't do them. So I'm going to go ahead and start with some announcements today, and then we're going to get right in. While I'm doing that, Peculiars, it takes just a minute for your questions to actually make it over to the feed. So go ahead and start typing in your questions now, and I'll be returning to them here in just a minute. So announcements, very excited to present them. First of all, you all love Charming Disaster. We're going to have their music tonight. They're doing Heart of Brass. Well, it just so happens they have a new Kickstarter coming soon. They have another album. They just released an album. I'm so excited because I never have enough of their music. But they're also going to have an Oracle deck done. So if you've watched their shows, and if you watch the show that's upcoming this December with us, they do a tarot reading and music together in this fantastic way. They're having an Oracle deck that's specifically created for them, which is super, super exciting. And I just want to say, keep your eye out. We will be announcing more about this soon. So onward, Davey. Yes, the drink for this evening. Okay, so we have mavens here at the Peculiar Book Club. If you don't know what that is, a maven, they're sort of like they're gurus of a certain area, let's say. So Maven Cat, she is the one who comes up with our drinks and a lot of our cocktails. And I said, maybe we've done a lot of alcohol lately. Maybe we should try something new. So what we have done instead is we've created this hot cocoa this evening, and I sent the recipe out to those of you who subscribe, and we've have a winning name, which I think is very funny. It became known as, Bill, the chocolate aphid. It's got a lot of chocolate, a lot of sriracha. It's lovely. Onward, Davey. Yes, we have some winners tonight. So one of the fun things about coming to Peculiar Book Club is if you are a regular, you get to win the Peculiar Book Club t-shirt. I don't know if you can see this, but it's Peculiar Book, and then there's a bloody club at the bottom. Yes, there we are. Peculiar Book Club. And these cannot be purchased. They can only be won. And so our first winner is Trish Mitchell, who's one of our VIP members. She gets a t-shirt. Second member, this is for people who are a little bit newer to us, and they get they actually get a Peculiar Book Club tote, but they actually get two, because the whole idea is we want you to hook one of your friends. So Robert Freeborn, you get the double totes, and those will be sent to you. I do need to have you send me your addresses. So please do send me your addresses, and you will be getting lovely swag gifts from us. Yes, Lexi Bolin says Kat always has the best drinks, and it is completely true. Some links for us. So if you are not familiar, we have a Facebook page, and we also have a Facebook group. And the Facebook page is where I post things, and the Facebook group is where all y'all post things, and that's actually a lot more fun. We have a regular website that you can get to, and after tonight's show, we have a Discord party. I understand that occasionally you hear one of our Peculiar's Ravens talk to you, saying hello, if I'm not mistaken. I missed it last time. But you go into the Discord, and you can have an after party, continue talking about the book and other things, and share your pets and weird ideas. And it's lovely. There's a whole conversation happening right now in chat about bats landing on your head and in your hair, which is hilarious. Jennifer says it's a little bit like getting a head massage. Okay, that's good. I've never had one land in my hair. I had one land on my back once, and he was very cute about it, actually. So those are our links. I think is that it, Davey, or do I have another one? Oh, I do. Right. So half season is for sale up until the 1st of October. So if you love this, and you should, because we're amazing, you can buy a half season. We'll take you through the end of the year. Also, we have t-shirts still left. We are starting to run low on sizes. So if you want a Peculiar Book Club Season 3 t-shirt with our Grumpy Murder Puss, please do order those soon. You can email me for anything that you need. Is that it, Davey? Is that everything I had on there? Yes?
Yes, I believe we've reached the end.
Okay.
Of the
Okay,
yes.
good. We've reached the end.
I'm adding the links. I'm adding a lot of those links to the chat. So keep an eye on the chat, and I'll fill it up with those links.
I am trying to be better. I'm so terrible about it. I'm like, I have announcements, and then I don't tell anyone. And then later I send emails being like, I had announcements, but here they are. So really happy to get those out of the way. I'm interested to know, now that I've had so many people talking about bat saving and bat hair and bat head massages, have you ever had a bat in your hair, Bill?
No. I've been in caves with thousands of bats, and I've never heard of anyone that ever had a bat fly into their hair out of all of the bat biologists that I've ever worked with.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never had one in my hair. I did have one flying through a window. I was driving with my dad. We were raccoon hunting, which is a peculiar hobby to have. But one flew in the window and actually landed in the space right where you can't functionally reach. And I couldn't get him off. And every time I'd pat back, he'd be like, weep, weep. So I did have that happen. And my mother once had one land on her chest after she was spraying for hornets underneath the eaves, and accidentally kind of fumigated one, and it landed right here, but never one in my hair.
Nope, never.
Oh, there's Robert Freeborn. Woohoo!
I mean, if you want the explanation that we give to folks, it's that people think they're being dive bombed by bats, when in most cases it's probably birds and bats. They're after mosquitoes that might be flying around you. They're not after you. And I like I said, I've never heard of one flying into anyone's hair.
I got
hats in caves because we don't want them pooping in our hair.
Right.
That's the real problem. Now that's happened thousands and thousands of times.
It might be good for conditioner. Who knows?
Maybe.
We do have a spot where we walk the dog where you come out of the woods and there's like an access road that kind of splits the woods in half. And we just were there at the perfect time at dusk, and the bats shoot down it like a bat runway, like an alley, and you don't see them coming. They're on you before you even realize it, and then whoosh, they're over your head. And we had never been out there at that time of night, and they were so cool.
They are so cool. I love bats so much. But of course, before we get too out of our league here, our emphasis tonight, I want to start off as you started off with the biggest heart I can think of. So you began with this amazing idea of a whale heart, and I've seen a whale heart, the sort of plastic rendition of one at a museum. They are quite large, but they're not as big as I expected them to be. As we know from, I did a small video skit that I think Davey can play for us that will expand on how we can't actually swim in a whale. Davey, I don't know if you have it queued up or not. It's in there, so he's looking.
At long last, we are here, and we are going on a quest. That's right. Inside a whale, I am going to swim through the arteries of a giant blue whale. Slow down there, Captain Nemo. You can't swim through a whale's heart. The arteries aren't big enough. But it's big. It's a big animal, giant heart size of Volkswagen. I can swim through. Well, I know it's a big animal, and it is. But you see, their arteries aren't necessarily large enough to allow a human being to. Look, I'm gonna swim through this whale. Bill Schutt's book explains how the heart is actually, though quite large, also collapsible, in fact, for their deep dives. Collapsible? What do you mean? You mean they squish? That seems not good. That's right. They suspected they compress, and in fact, when they autopsied one whale, the heart was completely deflated like a big balloon, squashed down to size. Well, I don't want to be squished. I guess you're just going to have to find a new pursuit. All right? We're going on a quest to be swallowed by a blue whale. Don't worry. If you have questions about the heart, we have answers. Just so happens that Bill Schutt is going to be joining us on our show, The Peculiar Book Club. You're going to love this. We're going to be talking about hearts through history, following the circulation of ideas and exactly what we thought the heart was for. And also there's a blue whale in it, and blue crabs, and...
I loved that so much. When you were explaining how it's, we have these big ideas, don't we? We have this idea that it's such a big animal, must surely be able to sustain that. And yet it's not like that at all.
Well, it's a huge heart. It's the blue whale heart that was recovered by my friends at the Royal Ontario Museum. Weighed in at around 400 pounds, but this was a 90-ton whale. And if you were to, so they thought that it was going to be the size of a small truck, and it wound up. And you can see it here in this. A lot smaller than that, maybe a golf cart. But they were really puzzled when they saw that sense when you look at the fact that whale heart beats maybe 10, 15 times per minute. Something like, so if you had a hummingbird that weighed 90 tons, right? Its heart would be about 3,200 pounds. So 8 times larger. And if you think about that, it has to do with the fact that, these are creatures who are beating their wings 80 times per second. And in order to do that, you have to use muscles. Those muscles require oxygen and nutrients. So one way to get blood to those muscles is to have the heart beat quickly. And it can beat up to 1,260 times per minute. We think that's probably about the limit. If you think of the heart as a mechanical device, it has to fill and then empty and then fill. 1,260 times, that's probably about at the physical limit of that as a mechanical structure. So the only other way to pump more blood besides pumping faster is to have a large heart. So every time the heart pumps, it pumps out a larger volume of blood. So that's what we think is going on.
Because you had mentioned shrews as well, and I have endless trouble with shrews because pygmy shrews, they infiltrate and kill my bees. So I struggle with, I'm worried about those shrews. And it's just very interesting to me that if you maximize the size of a shrew to the size of a whale, you probably could swim through a shrew's heart or through a hummingbird. Amazing. Yep. I don't know what I thought, but it's nature is always so much more interesting because nature's so efficient for the animal in its environment. I think that's amazing.
I mean, these were curators, and they had been telling folks for years that, oh yeah, you might be able to swim through the aorta. And so when they finally got their hands on one, which is sort of a tragic story that turned out really well, they were very surprised about a lot of details about the heart that they just never knew before. The fact that the heart, as you mentioned in that video, collapses, so if you had a human heart or a cow heart and you laid it on a table, it would sit there. It would have form, structure. If you had a whale heart, empty, and laid it out, I described it as, it looked like to me, it looked like a soup dumpling. And I think it has to do with the fact
sad balloon.
A very sad soup dumpling.
But it is amazing. And so I know that obviously the book goes in many different directions from there, and I hope we'll get to all those things. But as a way of beginning, I think that's really great. And speaking of beginnings and structure, Karen actually had a great question, and she was asking about pump structure, especially why you started with the animals themselves, the critters, and then moved on to the sort of history focused sections. And she said she just loved to hear more about your author's notes. And I agree, because of course I'm a writer too, and we do spend a lot of time in the show talking about what it means to construct a text. So, I'm curious, what sort of led you into that kind of structure and that idea?
That's a really, really good question. And I've got to go back to my first book, which was Dark Banquet, Blood and the Curious Laws of Blood-Feeding Creatures. I'd been studying bats for years and years and years. And within the 1,400 or so different species of bats, it was the 3 vampire bats that I specialized in. So when I wound up getting the contract to write this book, the first half of the book was about my research, and it was about vampire bats. So from there, from dealing with bats, I moved into other blood-feeding animals like ticks and leeches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then and then after the animal section was over, transitioned into humans, and then medicine, because I'm I'm a real historian. I love to look at the ways, especially. And so that format worked for me, where you went animals, humans, history. And so I did the same thing with the cannibal book, and the same thing with Pump as well. And it doesn't really work. I just turned in a book about teeth, and the prologue and first chapters is not about animals. It's about George Washington. So
he's an animal of the sort, right? I mean,
and early dentistry. So I changed a little bit for what'll be the new book. But I just, when you find a format that works for you, that you're comfortable with, and to me, it just made writing easier. I could follow the scaffold.
It makes really good scaffolding, and of course now I'm thinking of heart scaffolding and all these other things. But it's true. I wish I keep finding formulas I like and then not being able to use them in my next book, which is very frustrating. The book I'm working on right now, my past book was very chronological in the sense that you could vary. It was kind of like a biography, but the biography was the scaffold on which you hung a lot of other stories. But this next book is so interwoven, and I started off trying to write it like the old one, and it just didn't work. And so it is a bit frustrating. I love finding good structures, but then I'm frequently frustrated that I can't use them again.
Yeah. So 4 nonfictions, and 3 of them followed that animal human history format, and the last one didn't. So, things change.
Yeah.
I found it just as interesting to start with early dentistry and the story of George Washington.
So I'm curious, did you cover? No, I know I'm getting off topic here, but did you cover the cock's tooth, the rooster tooth? I love that story. Okay, I'm not going to say anything more, but you guys, rooster teeth. You're going to want Bill's next book.
There's a figure of that as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kristen Meston had a question. She said, I was fascinated by the possibilities for heart tissue repair. Since heart disease is the #1 cause of death in America, shouldn't researchers be getting like $1 bazillion in funding?
They are. And that was one of the things towards the end of this book, I moved into the, what's new and exciting in this field, because so many people die from cardiac related diseases. And so what I found was just amazing. That and the neat thing about this, when you study vampire bats for 30 years, a lot of people are, you'll hear this question mostly from my relatives. They're like, well, how's that going to keep grandma alive for an extra 5 years? And so with this book, the animals that I use, the examples that I used about neat hearts tied into medical advances. And so that was kind of cool. And there are all sorts of avenues that researchers are now taking, from building a heart from scratch to taking hearts and removing all of the cells and everything that your body would have an immune response to if you were to take, say, a heart of a donor without knowing what his blood type or tissue types were.
Right.
Stripping away everything and leaving, as we said before, a scaffold.
Yeah.
Then taking a sample of of specific cells, converting those cells into stem cells, and then stimulating those stem cells to become cardiac muscle cells. All of that is taking place now. And then you take cells and impregnate this scaffold of connective tissue that you started out with. To me, I was blown away by the different avenues that researchers are taking to solve this problem.
It is utterly mind-blowing. I'm with you on that. I remember the first time I saw what they call a ghost heart, right? That's with the tissue removed, and it's just that strange, translucent white shell.
Absolutely.
And I thought, how can that be real? And it is. And it's a kind of detergent that they use, strangely, an enzyme. It's fascinating. And I just, the heart is something we have long. In earlier periods, we had the stomach was kind of like the thing, but once we graduated that sense that the heart was of utmost importance, I think it's really stuck with us, even when we know that the brain, we've moved towards the brain, but I think we have a soft spot we have a heart for the heart. And I think this kind of book really, really does impact people, especially like I think it was Kristen was saying, this is one of the number one causes of death is heart disease. And of course, it's nice to have a book where you can say, this is why. I mean, my last book was on head transplant. It is a little difficult to explain how that's going to help grandma as well. But when you're doing medical history, you do have this ability to kind of plug into all of these other things. I just love that.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you back up and look at things like Baby Faye, at my age, we remember this surgery that took place in 1984, where they transplanted a baboon heart, a baby baboon heart, into a desperately ill child. And that was on the news, all three channels.
All the time. Everywhere.
But not a lot of people remember that are younger or have heard of it. So to be able to go back in and tell that story from a new perspective, and then to have the tragedy was that the baby died. The thing that worked out that was wonderful was that it really brought the lack of donor hearts, infant donor hearts, to the forefront. And now you don't have to transplant baboon hearts into babies.
Right.
Now people will donate if their child dies tragically. And so
it
was a real good that came out of what was at the time had a tragic ending, of course.
Right. And my last book talks a lot about heart transplant science in general, and it is astonishing just how far we've come in a really short period. I mean, it's not that long ago. We're talking the 60s was when these first transplants were even done, 60s, 70s. So it's amazing how far we've moved. Had a couple of questions. We need to just take a moment to go back to that sad soup dumpling that you mentioned. And Anthro Girl asks, do other marine mammals' hearts do that too? Or is it just whales? Are they the only ones that have that collapsible kind of heart thing going on?
Great question, and something that needs to be researched. So, this is an alert for graduate students. My friends at the RUM were surprised that the heart collapsed like that. And because mostly if you're looking at a heart, right, the muscle tissue is wound around it. It sort of spirals around the heart so that when the muscle contracts, the heart, in a sense, rings out. And that's the movement that you see. This heart, the muscle fibers went from top to bottom so that when they contracted, the heart would collapse. And we think that they're tied into pressure, but this is brand new. This is only several years old that they figured this out, and they don't know it. But it's certainly an avenue of research that say a graduate student might get into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. And of course, Anther Girl just popping in. We have a number of people who work in medicine. Of course, there's still a shortage of organ donors. I am chasing so I've got a little fruit fly in here who's really interested in my cocoa. But it's true. We do still have a shortage of donors.
Absolutely.
Even still. But obviously you're right. Like, I think one of the interesting points about one of the things I love about your book, and I think everyone else is probably going to agree with me, is the connection between animals and human beings. And all of your books kind of do this so far anyway. And I think that's important because I gave a keynote address earlier today at the University of Michigan online, where I was explaining the value of medical humanities and environmental science, understanding that we're in this big connected world, and that it's not enough to think only of human health, that there's this many crossovers. And I think books like yours, and also the way zoology and medical history can actually cross over, are really, really powerful and important places to begin for exactly that kind of thing.
I completely agree. I mean, one of my themes is that we shouldn't go around thinking that we've got this, everything is superior. That and we were,
yeah,
generation at least, we were brought up thinking that humans are the pinnacle, and the dinosaurs were failures, and then Cro-Magnon man they just their women around by the hair, and they were stupid. All of that stuff is just garbage. And now, I really tried to have a theme through all of my books that that just because it's simpler, if you're looking at these structures in some animals, the heart is much more simple than it is in say a human or a mammal. That doesn't mean it's defective or inferior at all.
Right.
These things have been evolving for millions and millions of years, and they work perfectly well for what they've evolved to do. So we need to get away from this, and I don't really see it that much with new researchers. This idea that we are the end all. Everything is superior at it in humans. The complexity of our heart is problematic when you're comparing it to something that is that doesn't have these little tiny vessels on the outside that supply the muscles that have a tendency to get clogged up with the crap that we eat.
We're not well suited to our current environment. That's for sure.
What was that?
I said we're not particularly well suited to our current intake and environment. And that's the other thing that I think your book really illustrates, is that evolution can't move as fast as human culture does, right? So we're not made to eat saturated fats. I'm just curious. I want to throw this question out to the peculiars. I want you guys to percolate on this. I want to know, was I the only one who actually followed the directions and got on the floor and pretended to be an insect with their various spiracles pointing various places? I just want to know. Show of hands would be great. I want to know who else was interacting.
I was driving. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry.
Couldn't do it. All right. I was in my basement. No one else could see me. Kristen said, I really enjoyed the discussion of, is it Chagas disease?
Yeah.
Am I mispronouncing that? Chagas disease and Darwin, and the zoonotic diseases in the age of climate change do scare many of us for lots of really good reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I brought this up because no one really knows what plagued Darwin health-wise for the last 40 years of his life, and one hypothesis is that he got Chagas disease, which is a microbe that he picked up the bite of a blood-feeding insect that he allowed to bite him when he was in Argentina, and so. Unfortunately, because he had a lot of the same symptoms of people who have chronic Chagas, and one of those can be heart problems. So I just found it really interesting that I wanted to sort of resurrect that hypothesis that had been bandied about with about 24 others about why he was so chronically ill, and then what eventually killed him.
Yeah, which is fascinating. I mean, it especially because I have a colleague who went on doing some anthropological research, and she has a hole in her skull in the front because she got one of those boring insects. And I said, "Oh, well, are you going back?" And she's like, "Oh yeah." And I was like, "Oh, I wouldn't." But for science, Leanne asks, okay, because we're kind of an octopus sort of cephalopod group.
Noticed.
Talk to us about the octopus hearts.
Well, they have 3 different hearts, and so if you were to let me start off by saying that if you went to a cardiologist and called any of these a real heart, he might not think that it was so, because they have got requirements for something that you're going to define as a heart would have to have a lining of tissue, endothelial tissue, and if it doesn't have that, then it's not really a heart; it's a muscular pump. My take on that is that there are all sorts of different heart-like structures.
Right.
Some of them resemble human hearts, and some of them don't. And what we see in cephalopods, because of their active lifestyles, I believe, is the fact that you needed a more efficient type of heart for an active lifestyle. And what evolved here was two pumps, that branchial hearts that pump blood returning from the body to the gills, picks up oxygen, returns to a systemic heart, and that systemic heart then pumps and sends blood out to the body. So generally speaking, in a system like that, a low pressure system would be one where blood coming back from the body would go to the gills, pick up oxygen, and then would leave under low pressure. Now, you're not going to be, I don't believe that you could have evolved something with the high metabolism, the speed, the aggressiveness of something like a squid, without a booster. And that booster is the systemic heart that sends the blood on its way after it's been oxygenated.
It's pretty fascinating. And I mean, I'm a big fan of cephalopods for lots of reasons. One, I love the fact that they are so unknowable in many ways, and yet clearly very highly evolved, interesting species who are totally adapted to their environments. But also this kind of shape-shifting sort of way that they live. They change shape and size and structure and texture and all of these things. And all of this is being powered by this little engine, inside. And so I think, to your point earlier, hearts might not originally seem like a weird subject, but they get you into weird places. And I think that, of course, that's the value for all of us. I just posted a minute ago, there's now a conversation about folks in osteology class bonding after talking about which parasites and creatures they had gotten bitten by or bored into by, and this led to Mike suggesting maybe we need a book about trepanation, and that's probably true. We haven't done one of those yet. I really want to talk about the state of horseshoe crabs. But first, because we're at the midpoint in the show, it is time for us to have a musical interlude. So we are going to have the Charming Disaster. They are going to share with us all about a very different kind of heart, a heart of brass.
Hello, Peculiars.
We're Charming Disaster.
And we have a song for you.
A steampunk adventure.
Entitled
Heart of Brass.
In the dirigibles gondola, the clouds fog up your monocle. You wipe it with a handkerchief embroidered with a monogram. Looking for lost continents, you'd better check your pocket watch. We won't be home for luncheon, but they'll keep the platters warm.
Not as pure as gold,
Captive of the scientist,
not as sharp as
he
glass,
practiced his experiment.
not as strong as stone.
Flesh and blood will never last. My baby's got a heart of brass. Underneath the diving bell, return to the submersible before the lonely Nautilus can wrap you in its tentacles. Moistening your handkerchief to polish your discoveries. The needle of the compass doesn't point to any north. Not as pure as gold,
Captive of the scientist,
not as sharp as
she
glass.
practiced her experiments.
Not as strong as stone.
Flesh and blood will never last.
My baby's got a heart of brass. Quinn space laced with laudanum will get you through the tedium of waiting to be rescued from inside the sanitarium. The esoteric brotherhood suspect you're up to nothing good. The ampule in your handkerchief will put them all to sleep. We're all some kind of machine.
We're only cogwheels, pistons, and steam.
All of us powered by water and heat. It makes our tick-tock hearts beat, 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 beat. The automaton forever sits, its hand upon the writing desk, gently grips a fountain pen that circumscribes an arabesque, deciphering the messages encrypted by the alchemist. The handkerchief will wipe away the secrets that it keeps.
Not as pure as gold.
Captive of the scientists,
Not as sharp as
they
glass.
practice their experiments.
Not as strong as stone.
Flesh and blood will never last. My baby's got a heart of brass. Floating down the Amazon, we wonder if we've gone too far. Plunge into the whirlpool at the basin of the waterfall. Scribbling this chronicle, the fog clouds up your monocle. A handkerchief can stop her up. Our message in a bottle, we have left it gently bobbing on the surface of the water as we sail around the spiral into mystery or miracle. Cry into your scry glass, inquire of your oracle. Squint into your spyglass, you can see us wave farewell.
I honestly feel like even though they didn't write that song for us, they could have done. There are two songs inspired by me, by them, but that's not one of them. But it could have been. It almost could have been. Such a good show. Have you ever heard of them before, Bill?
No.
No. Okay. Well, they are a science goth folk band. Their latest album is all about Mary Curie. So quite an amazing feat, I have to say. So I had mentioned that I wanted to start off talking a little bit about the horseshoe crabs, and then I have to make time and space because there is the author quiz, which is a big deal around here. But Susan Ballinger said she had read a book in the 70s that talked about horseshoe crab harvesting, and she's so sorry to hear that it hasn't changed at all. And I was pretty devastated too. I have to say, I got a little choked up by that section.
Yeah, this was once again something that it has tragedy in it. It has some really neat science, but ultimately it may lead to the extinction, or at least localized extinction of some horseshoe crab populations. And it was years ago. This was before I was writing books. So I'm driving down the street and I saw a pickup truck, and the back of the pickup truck was full of horseshoe crabs. And they were alive, and I was wondering what they were, why that was so. And so when I worked on this book, what started out as, I didn't get into this topic for the reasons that I wound up writing about. I had some kind of snarky idea about, about Aztecs and blue blood, and I got away from it when I started to investigate what blue blood was, and found out that there are a lot of arthropods, including horseshoe crabs that don't have hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is what makes our blood look red, and if you think of it, the example that I give is that it is an iron-containing molecule that latches on to oxygen, 4 molecules of oxygen. And then when it does so, it turns red. And you can think about that like an iron fence that has rusted. So an iron fence is in contact with oxygen, and that's what that rust that you see is this reaction. A lot of animals don't have hemoglobin, and so the hemoglobin latches onto oxygen in the lungs or gills and then carries it to a place that's deficient of it and then drops it off.
Right.
But there are other oxygen carrying molecules, and one of them is hemocyanin. And here the at the heart of this molecule is not iron, it's copper. And so when this copper-based molecule links onto oxygen, it turns red. And the way that you can see that is look at the Statue of Liberty.
Or you mean blue-green, yeah.
Yeah, a blue. Yeah, excuse me, I meant blue-green. Apologize. That oxidation that you see there leads to this blue-green coloration, and that's where this blue blood comes from. So that's how I got involved in researching blue blood. But the horseshoe crab story turned out to be really interesting because it, for the longest time, it was used as they chopped them up and used them for fertilizer, and millions of these were millions. Then they were using them to bait traps for eels and whelk.
Right.
And when conservationists sort of come down on folks for doing that, and when more efficient types of fertilizer were discovered, what a scientist in the 1970s figured out was that in the presence of endotoxin, if you chop a horseshoe crab, if you slice it, it clots immediately. The wound clots, and this is what happens when horseshoe crab blood comes into contact with endotoxin. There's a substance in it that forms a clot, and what this guy did was he derived this substance and turned it into a test to test for the presence of endotoxin in things like catheters and batches of drugs and anything that needed to be sterile. Because if endotoxin gets into your body or in a sterile condition, so endotoxin can work in several different ways, but the one that to me was the most fascinating is that it's not like these bacteria are releasing endotoxin to protect themselves. What takes place is if you have this bacterium and you sterilize the area that this bacteria exists in, you burst that cell, and the substances that are released, those are the endotoxins.
Okay.
And what has turned into an industry is the fact that using this substance in the horseshoe crab blood, you can get a visible response in a test if there is endotoxin present. So,
it's interesting. It reminds me of a precipitin test almost. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a clot that forms. So you can see you can see a form of a clot form when endotoxin comes into contact with this substance. So they've made an assay out of it. But the promising thing is that they figured out ways to do this without using horseshoe crab blood. And because they would hang these horseshoe crabs upside down, they would drain them until they stopped bleeding. And then by law, they had to bring the horseshoe crab back where they got it from and release it. Probably 40% of them die.
Right.
They're being carried around in the back of trucks.
Yeah, no water. I was shocked by that.
Water. So so it's kind of a joke, I think. I mean, that's my, personally. Listen, you can't underemphasize the importance of this assay. But the thing is that they figured out how to do it without using horseshoe crab blood. And a number of major drug companies picked this test. But when COVID came along, it went onto the back burner because there were so many labs that were producing this horseshoe crab based substance, that test, that they sort of just pushed it to the side. So we hope that down the road we can eliminate that, like just like in the old days that they used the rabbit test. They don't do that anymore because they've got they've got a non-rabbit equivalent. We hope down the road that we'll be able to do that without slaughtering horseshoe crabs.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the rabbit, I actually wrote a piece about early blood tests, early attempts to figure out whether human blood was in a crime scene, and they used to actually basically use rabbits. So they would inject rabbits with human blood, wait for antibodies or antigens to form, and then use that to see if it would clot in the presence. I mean, it's fascinating stuff, but you're also using rabbits. In this case, using horseshoe crabs. I was going to ask you if there was a test that didn't require it. It sounds like there is, but like, again, COVID has really changed so many research prerogatives, hasn't it?
Yeah, there is a test out there that doesn't use horseshoe crab blood, and it was, as I said, it was becoming popular, and a large pharmaceutical company, which will go unnamed at this point, was using this to test their compounds, and that's from what I understand. When COVID hit, there was such a demand for sterilized equipment that they just went with what was easiest to get their hands on.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's hope, because I just, also, it doesn't seem like it would be that difficult to transport them in, I don't know, water. Like, there's some very strange things that the almighty capitalism destroying the things again. But that was a really sad chapter. And then I love all your chapters, of course. I'm sorry, guys. I was really quite impressed with the earthworms. I don't know about you all, but that chapter just blew my mind. And the insects and things. And I always suspected that mosquitoes were heartless. And now I feel like I have, evidence of that. But the blue crabs, that I felt quite personally touched by. This is a long-standing ancient animal that we're, putting in jeopardy for no real good reason. I mean, there's clearly ways around this. So.
Yeah,
amazing.
You hear the term living fossil thrown around, and horseshoe crabs are living fossils. If you go back a 500 million years and you look at a fossil of a horseshoe crab, it looks like a horseshoe crab today. So they've carved out this great kind of like snuffling along through the mud niche, and we've along really and really put
They're
it down.
like little mud pigs.
Yeah, that's a great name. I like that.
A little mud pig. That's what I like to think of them as. Well, we have some more time. You guys I'm seeing questions and comments still populating, but it is time. It is time for the most exciting thing, the Davey Author Quiz.
And Brandy, I am so glad that I get to quiz Bill this week and he doesn't get to quiz me, because I was not taking that anatomical section. I was in the car and I had like flashbacks to like freshman undergrad. I was like, oh my God, I should be scribbling all this down until my hand cramps. And it was good. It was really informative.
Yeah, it was great stuff. All right, I'm going to sneak myself away so that we have room for everything. I might pop in periodically, but I'm here, guys, and you can ask. Don't worry, Bill. They're with you. The Peculiars are here to help you out. And so, guys, be ready.
They're a few seconds behind us, so we give them some time to catch up. All right, the quiz this week. Oh, I don't know, Brandy. I screwed up.
What'd you do?
I clicked on the wrong Wikipedia entry. I meant to click on the heart, and I accidentally clicked on the band Heart. I guess we're going to have to do a musical quiz.
Who is Nancy Wilson?
We're going to have to do a musical quiz this week. So the quiz this week is called The Heart of Rock and Roll is the Beat. So you had a lot of like pop culture references to hearts and all the ways it's been used and stuff like that. So I thought I'd ask you a few musical questions. These are supposed to be random and out there. So the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame group Heart started as a 60s Seattle-based rock group known as, before Heart, they were known as White Heart. Before that, they were known as Hocus Pocus. And originally, they were known as A, the Army, B, the Navy, or C, the Marines. And I will say this is before the Wilson sisters came on board. If anybody is a Seattle-based rock and roller from the 60s, do you remember a band named the Army, the Navy, or the Marines that eventually turned into Heart? And I forgot how many.
I'm going to need some help on this one. I was going to say Soft White Underbelly, but that was Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah. I feel like I remember Hocus Pocus. I feel like I remember some hits, or at least something that made the radio as Hocus Pocus, but I never remembered this original.
A little bit slow, but we're seeing a few. Jennifer suggests it might be C.
I figured this would stump a lot of people, but I had to ask you a good trivia question about the band Heart.
I thought maybe B. B. I was going with B there, but I could be wrong.
Man. Is anyone a fan of Magic Man?
I love Magic Man.
Good song.
All right. Final answer. What are you guessing there, Bill?
I'll go with B.
She's going B, the Navy. The answer is A, the Army. I don't know why. Actually, I think one of them was like a draft dodger for Vietnam, and they actually moved to Canada, and the whole band moved to Canada.
This is before the Wilson sisters.
I think this is before the Wilson sisters. Yeah. So interesting.
That was when they were pancreas. They weren't heart yet.
All right. Question number 2. We're going completely different genre this time. And to fit these in, I had to go small font. I apologize. My Heart Will Go On was Celine Dion's biggest hit. We all remember it from Titanic. It won Academy Awards. It won Grammy Awards. But it is only the second best-selling single by a female solo artist of all time. Behind, is it A, Believe from Cher, B, All I Want from Christmas Is You from Mariah Carey, or C, I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston? And I will tell you, all 4 of these songs are in the top probably 12, 15 singles of all time. And, thankfully, we're not there yet. I don't know about where you live, but I have not heard All I Want for Christmas Is You come on the radio yet. We're getting dangerously close to that season.
That's going to be my guess.
All I Want for Christmas. What do you think, Peculiars? Got a lot of B's. We got a C from Kristen. We got some B's. The answer is the top-selling female single of all time is I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston.
0 for 2.
Leanne says, C.
Glad I don't do this for a living.
Yeah, that's okay. This is just like Whose Lines It Anywheres, where the points don't matter. And I realized that one of my graphics was missing. All right, we'll move on to question number 3. We'll see if this genre is a little more your speed. Elvis Presley's hit Heartbreak Hotel was recorded in January 1956, but really took off after he performed it live on this TV program. Was it A, The Milton Berle Show, B, The Stage Show, or C, The Steve Allen Show? What do you think?
I'm going to go with A.
He's going with A, The Milton Berle Show.
He's there. I have no help here. You guys? Anyone?
Any Elvis fans out there? I love this song. I had the idea of doing a whole parody of this song based on your book, Pump, and I just did not have the time to write an entire Weird Al Yankovic parody song in the 2 weeks between
you have
shows.
To understand, though, Davey's very, very funny and plays the saxophone as attested by our claymation.
I did. I wanted to play saxophone for you guys. I did. I will come up with another saxophone sketch. We're guessing C. We're guessing A.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trusting to Bill.
If you want to hear a great cover of this song, there's a great cover performed by the California Raisins of all groups. They put out an album, and it is one of the most unbelievable covers of the song I've ever heard. All right, what was your guess? Your guess was A, The Milton Berle Show?
Yeah, but I think maybe it could be C as well. I'll go with A, though.
It's actually Stage Show, a short-lived musical program. I think it lasted about a year, but it was this performance, because there weren't that many channels to choose from, as we've joked earlier. But it was performing it on this show that really made the sales of Heartbreak Hotel explode. He performed it like 3 times, I believe, on that show. The big hit from the Milton Berle Show was Hound Dog. Yeah, that was.
I seem to remember him goofing on Elvis, and that's why I thought it was this. But right, another.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Boy, these are tough, man.
Yeah. Oh, the Davey quizzes are quite a thing, I have to say.
This was one of those ones where I was like, I mean, the heart, you know how much has been used in pop culture. It's everywhere.
Yeah,
we could have gone with TV shows.
Not.
I have a funny.
We're reading different references, though.
Yeah. Well, Teeth. We'll be back on you for Teeth. I'm excited to hear that there's another book, because we like repeat. We like y'all come back.
If we had done this book around Valentine's Day, I could have quizzed you about candy hearts and the messages on candy hearts.
That's true. That's
we
true.
were wrong
Amber Girl
season
says
for
your
that.
quizzes are getting harder, Davey.
This was a hard one, I will admit.
Sharon says none of us are old enough. Some of us are, Sharon. A few of us.
Well, I could have gone even older, because the hit song from the musical Damn Yankees is, of course, All You Need Is Heart miles and miles and miles of heart. If you remember that music, I almost went there because that song just popped into my brain as soon as we started talking about hearts.
You know, I have a funny story about Hound Dog. Those of you who are fans of Lady Paws, who checked in earlier but is now downstairs, on our honeymoon, he got roped into doing an on-stage not lip sync, but what's the word, Davey? We've done this before in my basement. Karaoke. An on-stage karaoke version with a live mariachi band of Hound Dog, but the only words he knew were "You're nothing but a hound dog." So, but he sang those with great heart. Just saying.
Over and over and over again.
Over and over and over again.
That was definitely something you had in your book. All the expressions of heart. All you have to have is heart. You know, you put your heart into it. Didn't you? You had a lot of those.
Yeah, well,
It was good.
That stuff's interesting to me, and this is why, you know, when they first told me that, asked me to write a book about the heart, I was like, what is there in there that hasn't been done? So, you know, I went for the weird, and I went for the stuff that when you repeat it at a party or something, people will actually learn something, but it'll be an interesting story. So that's really, I try to do that with all of my books.
That's why we love you. And by the way, I actually you got a spontaneous finger guns out of me for that. It is great. And this is why we like books like this, because of course if some of you are probably joining us for the first time, welcome. It's really nice to have you on board. But basically, we're just a group of people who love books and love to hang out. We get together twice a month. We have these after parties afterwards. We sit around and we talk on Facebook. And like Leanne says, I went for the weird. You're one of us, Bill. You belong to our group. This is exactly what we love. Yes. Thank you for joining us.
I take that as a compliment. I'm flattered.
Before we leave, I just wanted to say a few words about your illustrator, which I just sent a t-shirt to her. So I actually have the audiobook and the hard copy. Some of you do audiobooks. If you have the hard copy, there are some amazing illustrations in there. And I was wondering if you could say a few words about her.
Yeah, Patricia Wynn is a world famous artist and illustrator, and she has illustrated over 200 books. She's won numerous awards. And we've been office mates at the Museum of Natural History since the early 1990s, and we're very good friends. We just had a Zoom today to go over the last of the artwork for this tooth book. But the neat thing for me, and the lucky thing for me, is that every scientific paper that I ever wrote, when I was much more of an active researcher, book chapters, my 3 novels, and now 4 nonfiction books, she has illustrated every single figure in all of them. And so I'm incredibly lucky. And she's, we work very well together as a team, as far as trying to get what's in my mind down on paper. And she's brilliant at it, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's good for me. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
And I'm also going to pop up in the chat just so you guys can click on it. That is also the link to her website there.
Ignore the Amazon stuff. Pretend that's not on the screen. Cover that.
She's just a wonderful, wonderful person, and very funny, and we spend a lot of time together. She's got she actually has a show that opens on October 2nd, I think it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let me see if it's on her webpage.
I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah, I was looking to see if it's not on her homepage just this minute, but I was looking at.
Let me see. I can probably call my wife, Janet. Jan.
Patricia Wynn. When is the show?
1 second. Jen, can you get the postcard from Patricia Wynn that just came? Thanks. My wife's like, what?
I'm looking for it right now.
What are you doing calling me? No, that's so funny because the postcard for this just came today. And
oh, that's so funny. Oh, ice fish, not hagfish. Yes. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Can you hold it a little? Reunion, recent works. What's the gallery there?
That is going to be at the Salmagundi Club.
Salmagundi Club. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right.
Yep.
Awesome. I will do my best to to find that and then re-put it there. Yeah, as Anthro, it wouldn't be a Peculiar Book Club show without spousal support. We've got plenty of that around here. You missed a great comedy sketch done by Maggie, which is the better half of Davey there, where she pretended to be like, what was it? It was the vaccine one. That was
a whole press conference thing.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Stuff.
it was fantastic. So anyway, she's really brilliant. We really appreciate her, and I'm an artist myself. Actually, also do illustrations. Used to do illustrations for a newspaper, and I have done illustrations for conferences and books and murals and things like that. And so I really appreciate the artwork. I think it's really valuable, and to have somebody who is has been part of your work for so long is really incredible too. I think Lydia Kang works with different illustrators for her different books, but it's nice that you have this continuity. One last thing I want to say is those of you who don't know, and we have mentioned it a couple of times, but Bill also writes fiction, as do I. So most nonfiction writers sort of stay in nonfiction and fiction stay in fiction, but we do both, and just as Lydia Kang does both. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because I think that's really one of the we don't do a lot of fiction on the Peculiar Book Club, partly because fiction has a lot of other outlets and avenues, but we do some. And we're always really excited to push people in those directions because I think particularly when you have the scientific grounding and then you write fiction, it's really, really powerful because you're able to bring so much more to it. My problem as a scientific researcher is that I read a lot of fiction and go, no. So it's really nice to read one where I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm there for that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the creatures in Hell's Gate were giant vampire bats that actually existed. And then I was able to bring in sort of Nazis, and I was always interested in World War II. And yeah, that was our first book, and that's my favorite by far. But it's a lot of fun to make it scientifically accurate to the point where we've got a 20-page fact check at the end of these books that talks about the science that we've just been using in the
right. And I write mystery novels, and so but I'm also a scientific researcher of forensics, so I'm always like like, and this could happen. This is actually a thing. My editor says she learns things from me all the time.
That's good.
That's why I think it makes it so much fun that people in your world write fiction too, because you can take the science and then you can crank it up to 11 and really let whatever you want to go, horror, fantasy, whichever way you want to go with it, really shine through.
Yeah. I completely agree. I'm a huge Alfred Hitchcock fan, and so I try to I try to make my books scary but also funny. I love Christopher Moore. He's been an inspiration for the humor aspect of it. And it's just so neat that you can take, I've been taking a lot of characters, real life characters, and populating my books with them, including Alfred Hitchcock, and Bernard Herrmann, who did all of the music scores for the classic. That's
great.
I have them together at the museum arguing at a theater. So to be able to do that is just a lot of fun.
It is. It fleshes out the world in a new way. And we actually do have a couple. We have Stephen Gallagher will be with us next season, season 4. I used to be a professor. And we also have Amanda Diebert and Alex Grecian. So we don't normally do fiction, but we occasionally do. And I think it's really valuable when we can talk about it. Last question, and then we will close out our evening for tonight, is Anthro Girl says, your favorite of all your books, or even just the fiction? So you could separate that, or you could pick one.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm gonna cheat and pick a fiction and a nonfiction.
Fair, totally fair.
So fiction would be Hell's Gate, my first our first book, and favorite nonfiction would be Cannibalism.
Yeah, that is a good book.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was so popular and so well reviewed, and that's the one that hit the number when you're looking for royalties, and that's a big part. That's a big part of it, but that's the one that it's sort of, I call it the gift that keeps on giving. I'm still giving talks about cannibalism.
Yeah,
that came out years ago.
It's funny. That's true of my death book, which has some cannibalism in it, actually. So maybe it's the cannibalism. Maybe that's what it is. But you're right. There's some books that do stay sort of evergreen, and I think that's an endless fascination for us in ways that that other things are maybe less so. You know, I did a whole book on steampunk science, which might be one of my favorites, but it's my death book that just keeps kind of coming along. I've been interviewed by NPR and New York Times and all these. I will say there is some danger to becoming a death expert right around COVID time. But yeah,
or Halloween.
it has definitely
Or Halloween.
or Halloween. Yeah. That's right.
What about a cannibalism expert though? That's the one that, you know.
I like that about you, Bill, though. This is one of the reasons why I felt you belonged with us. So we are going to close down our show for today for again, even though it's wonderful to have all of you here. Two things I want to mention. One, Leanne reminds us it is time to mention one more time the Discord chat. There are links to the Discord chat on our Facebook page, and I thought I might have had them. Yeah, they're here too, aren't they? Yes, right there. Our Discord right there on the screen there. And if you join us, it'll ask you to you have to accept the rules and regulations, and then you can join the chat. You can see live video. You guys can talk to each other face to face, and it's amazing. So I hope that you will join us. I'll try to pop in a little bit. Please do. Second thing. Thank you. It's just been populated up on the chat there, so you can just click. Second thing I want to mention is normally when we close out the show, everyone says what a wonderful time they've had and many thanks. And the thank yous are already starting. It was a fascinating book, Bill. But we are also, Davey and I, preparing to do a little video in preparation for our season 4. So I was wondering if you guys wanted, in addition to the thank yous and it was great seeing you all, to add, join us. I would really appreciate it, because we're going to capture that and then make that part of our video series, asking people to come and be part of us for this wonderful show and all the support that it provides to the musicians and the authors. And one last plug, we still have a few copies of the signed books by Bill for Pump at Loganberry and at Fox Lane. So whether you're ordering from the US or the UK, there's a couple of the signed books are still left, not many. Please do buy those books, buy Bill's books in whatever way that you can. Go get the fiction as well. It was wonderful having you guys at a place where, if you're weird, you're family.
You got the blue bottle blues when you wake up in the night. Don't make a big mistake, 'cause you can never make it right. When you reach out for the vial, feel the ridges in the glass. It's a matter of survival, baby, better watch your back. There is no antidote. There is no antidote. There is no antidote.